and welcome to the first episode of the podcast, Indiana Punk Forever. Now, that title refers to me and how I think of myself, and how even today I feel empowered by the fact that I grew up as an Indiana punk rocker. Really, it was a short period of time that I had, a punk rock haircut and played in quote-unquote punk rock bands. But as far as I'm concerned, everything that's happened since then, all the music I've ever done, it all comes from that punk place, which to me was do it yourself, you can do it, you don't have to be Jimmy Page, etc. And mix that with skateboarding, and there you go. It's propelled me through life. That sound right here, there is me opening a mini can of champagne. That's how punk I am nowadays. I like these little mini cans of champagne. It's like a sugar blast right to the fucking veins. Anyway, the first episode, I talked to this guy, Tim Yetman, who went to West Side High School, one of the rivals of Harrison High School where I went. And those kids, him and his friends, are a few years younger than us. And me and my friends had a band called The Defects, which is, to my knowledge, the first teenage punk band, skate punk band around our town, West Lafayette or Lafayette. And the next band was Civil Disobedience, which is, Tim really was in a late version of that, actually after they changed their name to Gadfly, but there was a continuity there. Those guys were the next generation. I remember now, when we were in college and I had my punk rock house, the Dog House, and our band, the Screaming Dogs. Those kids would come over, and they'd be like 13 or 14, and we were like 18 and 19. But the gap was huge. It's like they were little kids, and we were like seasoned old guys by that point. We had all already spent years walking around with people yelling, "Hey, faggot, punk rock, Devo." I think all around the country, people around that time that were into punk rock looked even visibly different in some way. People would yell out of trucks and cars and throw shit at you. "Hey, Devo, punk rock faggot." This is so ridiculously ignorant. But it was also fun because it was attention. I noticed that right away. Negative attention as good as positive, And it was us against the world. And anyway, I ramble on, not to quote aforementioned Led Zeppelin, but let's talk to Tim Yetman of Gadfly. He's an Indiana punk forever.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Dana. How's it going?
Good. It's going all right, man. Like I said before, I'm still alive, so hopefully that's a good barometer.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
How old are you now?
I'm 52.
Yeah, I'm 55, about to be 56. So nowadays we're the same age, but back in the day, you guys, it was like definitely almost a generational difference. It felt like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, it always feels that way. It's amazing. Yeah, that's very true. I mean, you guys were like our heroes,
Yeah, and we had.
So you're also badass and had everything figured out until we grew a few years and realized
those guys didn't know shit.
They didn't know shit any more than I ever fucking did. Yeah.
Have you ever gotten to an age where you think you do know shit?
Actually, I do. I'm at that age.
You're finally getting there, or you've been there for a while?
I've been there for a while, but okay, let's make the distinction between knowing something, having some wisdom, and that's not necessarily mean the same thing as being, entirely
applying it to your life?
Emotionally and psychically. No. I've applied it to my life, but you're still human, and you still, the wisdom is knowing that you're fucking stupid, basically, essentially. That's what it really is. That's for me, and laughing at myself and everyone else, essentially, but loving myself and everyone else more than I did years and years ago.
It's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to. I've found a lot easier to love other people once you start to learn to love yourself.
Yeah, just accepting what we're all fucked up in our own ways, and as a species, it's a train wreck. But you try to do what you can to make your own life and then everyone around you, a little better. That's my approach.
I think that's the key. That's really all there is. Trying to make it better, make things better.
100%.
Which
Absolutely.
Now let's go all the way back. Which I would say is definitely, that philosophy was definitely lived by civil disobedience. Were you in that first incarnation of the band?
No, I was not. No,
right.
That was
let's start from the very beginning.
Okay, sure.
So okay, now you guys all went to Westside High School?
We did. Yep.
And then Fergus and those guys, Greg Moore's, are they a year older than you?
No, they're actually a year or two younger than me, but they were like a little bit more sort of, I guess, getting some jam on, I guess, earlier than I was. But I was a skateboarder. I immediately became a skateboarder upon going to high school. I came back from a year, 8th grade, I spent in China, and I came back and I just wanted to become a skateboarder. And that just basically led to me meeting Fergus and Mike Paschke and other people that were in civil disobedience and going to shows all around campus. And we had this incredibly robust scene around our town, as you surely obviously remember. It was pretty remarkable and extraordinary. So it was hard to, if you were, I guess if you were inclined to be a punk, which I obviously was, it was hard to miss out on all the stuff that was going on. And it was really exciting, being young and seeing all these people doing all this music. And so, but we made friends, me and another buddy, Chris Kenser, who actually became part of Gadfly too. We met Fergus because he had that little shitty skateboard ramp, and like a little quarter pipe, and we just go over there and like skate it, just fairly audaciously, I guess, because back then you get in trouble for things. Nowadays, kids don't really get in trouble for things. Everything is pre-parentally approved, but that's kind of an exaggeration, but not really too much.
The robust scene, like when we were skateboarders, I grew up in the 70s and outside of West Lafayette, and we would get Skateboarder magazine, or I would get it, and then put a piece of plywood up my dad's sawhorse and try to make ramps. And then there was a magical day when I was down on the levee with my dad in the car, and I saw like, what are they building over there? And it was the Levee Plaza skateboard.
I recall that. Yeah.
Amazing, and that's where we and my friends all met there and started our first band, the Defects, out of there. But at that time, the kind of the purpose of this podcast is Indiana, or really West Lafayette punk. I want to know.
Okay, sure, yeah.
So we went and saw Dow Jones and the Industrials on campus and thought, we're going to start a band,
Right, of course, yeah.
And then at that time, we were the first kids doing it that I knew of, But
that's my recollection too. But you guys were you were the pioneers for our time, for the real sort of, I guess what you would call the punk, the sort of second wave or that leads into the hardcore kind of punk, away from, or, coming out of the sort of the earlier punk and proto-punk stuff. But this was for me, my, of course, favorite wave of punk, the full hardcore version.
That's it, huh?
Well, and it was, for me, we're talking about West Lafayette punk, and I'm super happy to do that and shut me up anytime because I'll shoot my mouth off. But the thing that was so wonderful and gorgeous to me about punk was that it wasn't just local. It was so connected. It was like the most connected thing that ever happened before the internet. You could sort of say that because, like, the culture of mailing fanzines and making fanzines and exchanging fanzines and ripping off everyone's music and recording it and sharing it with each other and shit. And the whole culture was nobody cared. I mean, no one was there to make money. Everyone was like teenagers just pissed off and going through post-puberty and confusion and shit and just wanted to make loud music. They didn't care about making money. And so, so one part that really drew me to it was not just my local scene, which was so awesome to have, like you guys and like I said, Fergus and so many other bands that were, marginally punk or otherwise, but, still a part of the larger music scene. But, also this connection with all these other people all across the nation, especially when we were making fanzines and stuff, because fanzine situation was basically where you make a fanzine, you go to Kinko's, you steal all the copies,
I only made 5.
Yeah, I only made 5. I made like 300.
Exactly.
You could cheat on stuff back then. And then you just make them and you send them out to everyone else. Just send them, spend your money, scrape it together, send it out, and they'll send you theirs. So that was a beautiful part.
Were you making fanzines before you started playing music then?
No, it all kind of started at the same time. I got into punk before I played. I actually was a little bit late becoming a musician, if you could ever call me a musician per se. But yeah, I just was into punk rock, into the scene, went to lots of shows, and around town as well as indie, ton, Zero Boys, Toxic Reasons, shows of all kinds in Indy and Chicago from all over.
What was your first punk show you ever saw?
I can't even remember. I mean, I did see Civil Disobedience. It might have been them, to be honest.
Did they ever play at West Side High?
No, but I have to tell you something really awesome. Our high school, this is a fairly, it's like a straight-laced, middle-class high school. And so punks were definitely kind of in the stereotypically marginal. We weren't into the hipster scene in our school. But the school had a couple of really intelligent people that were friends of ours that were into punk and punks themselves. But they're also like these brilliant, president of the student council people. So I would have never had the academic credentials or, desire for success the way these kids did. But thankfully we are friends of ours. And so they were somehow in charge of the student organization that booked concerts and arranged for talent to come to some of our concerts. And they got the Zero Boys to come, and they kind of, obviously distorted the description of the band when they did it. And when I couldn't believe it when they were trying to pull this off, half of it was just like a joke. But of course the other part was, fuck, we want those Zero Boys to come to our school, of course. And
I kind of remember that, yeah.
So they pulled it off, and they got the Zero Boys to come. We also had Right to the Accused come too. They did a bunch of I don't know how they did it twice, but anyway, Right to the Accused wasn't super punk, but they were kind of
Right to the Accused. But my God, they had like $1,000 each of punk rock clothing on. They just
no shit.
They came down from and not that I have any reason to point fingers at people, but it just looked like mom and dad had bought them their punk clothes.
Oh fuck yeah, they were from the the 708ers is what they were. They're from the suburbs of Chicago, no question.
We thought it was punk to go to Goodwill and get like a tuxedo shirt or something.
Yeah, they were glammy for sure. But anyway,
and they had like fucking Marshall stacks too, we're out there with a PV amp trying to compete with a Marshall.
I know. Same with us. One of the funny ironies of my music career, if you could call it anything such as that, could be the case, is that I never had good. All my equipment sucked until and so it was only after I was no longer performing that I was able to actually afford good equipment. But that's kind of part of punk equipment that sucks and it's malfunctioning, and just turn it up and fucking make it so loud you can't hear.
Yeah,
I mean,
Greg Ginn used to play through I think PV columns, which was like the same thing I had for my first PA.
Yeah,
and that sound you can't duplicate that sound that he has. It's fucking great.
I had a PV amp. It was a Deuce. Well, I modified it, but it was a total. It was fucking. I loved it. It was the working man's version of a rock and roll power stack thing that's just loud and nasty. I agree. I preferred that to the Marshall. Marshall was like, the fancy people had that shit.
I had a PV Renown. Remember those?
I don't know if I recall. But again, I'm also senile at this point. So
it had saturation. One of the knobs was just called saturation, and it was distortion. And if you turn it all the way up, it sounded like two big muffs. It was great.
Right.
All right, so back to the right before skateboarding, right before before you went to China. When did you go to China? When you were like 14 or something?
Yeah, 13.
So before that, did you grow up were you an angry kid? Were you just like West Side always seemed like a pretty nice place to live for me.
Oh, it was a fine place. I wasn't an angry kid any more than any other person. Standard dysfunctional family. Nothing out of the ordinary. No, not particularly.
Standard.
No, I didn't really have. One of the things I should say really for sure was punk rock awakened in me myself in many ways. Because when I got to I was I didn't know who I was. I was very introverted, socially not very adaptive, and good at being social, and so I didn't sort of have an identity of my own. Punk rock sort of gave me that individualist quest for super individual empowerment. Really,
it sounds like the quest for individual within. I also need a tribe to do that within.
Well, yeah, and of course I can maintain this myth that I did it by myself and that punk did it, but of course no, it's the tribe is what lifts you there, and that's what I'm saying. Is I got the Frank, yes. Although I think he's a douchebag, but I do go with that song, "Do It My Way," and I respect him for that. But anyway, that was what punk sort of did for me.
Did you have, when you came back after that summer and you just knew I'm going to be a skateboarder now, right? Did you?
I don't know I can't remember what it was.
But did you have the same thing where did you ever do that thing where you cut your hair and then you were just, as soon as you cut your hair, you're punk, and now all other music is excluded for a little while. You can't even, anything else besides punk or hardcore is uncool. Did you ever go through that?
Absolutely. I went through a extended period. It's a terrible, it's a ridiculously intolerant, purist attitude. Absolutely. In fact,
it's so useful though.
Well, I know, but it's taken too far. You get to you miss out on a lot. Here's an example. I love the Descendants, and they're not a radical political band at all. They're just a bunch of jokers having a lot of fun. And they're sort of the punk version. It's not the super hardcore version of punk. But sort of as I got closer to being 18 and I got really serious and radical politically, I was very revolutionary in my. I was radicalized, but just in
I remember you guys,
kind of way. And so I was very overly serious, and I wouldn't eventually I wouldn't even listen to descendants because I was like, they're not serious, and
They don't have anything to say.
We need a world full of serious people, or this world's going down the drain.
That's right. I can fix it, maybe.
Yeah, it's an immature attitude. But no, I did have that, and there are aspects of that I like. It's like a break. It's a cultural break. It's when you break from the middle class world that you live in, and you identify. I never did cut my hair. I never did actually, do any mohawks or any of that shit.
So you never really got because I had this. There was that same summer where I got contact lenses that summer. Before that, I'd been like this, four-eyed kid, sort of loners, and then we were getting into punk and skating, and then one time we just cut our hair as a joke, right? And,
sure.
And then we rode our bikes into town. We went to Pin Pan Alley, and I remember I
remember Pin Pan Alley.
and I didn't have my contacts yet, so I broke off the front part of a pair of Ray-Bans and taped it onto my glasses. So I was punk now,
You
and I
walked in,
in,
absolutely.
And this guy goes, who are you supposed to be, the Blues Brothers? And it was instantly something went off in my mind, oh my God, I'm being recognized right now. It doesn't matter what they say,
right. That's true, and it's true. It's the power of that changing. Doing anything non-conformist and abnormal in society it's a very powerful thing. Humans they notice it and they fear it, and that's
why so silly now.
But being young punks are drawn to it because they're fucking 16, 17, 18 years old. They don't give a fuck. They hate their parents. They hate their parents' culture. They hate boomers. Way before OK Boomer.
Oh, yeah.
And,
well, aren't you? You're not I'm still a boomer, though.
Well, you're you're a very late boomer.
The last late boomer.
Well, it makes a difference. It's not like when you're born in between a certain number of years, you're automatically set in one stereotype of the generation.
1964 is the last year of the boomers, from what I've read, but
right.
maybe I'm wrong.
It's true, but it doesn't matter because those are arbitrary dates. But anyway, go ahead.
What about, so now you're in that mindset, the radicalized mindset. I can't even listen to the Descendants. And then do you remember the moment when that broke and you let everything else back in?
Yes, I do. I remember that was after I had a song that Ferguson and I co-wrote. I wrote the lyrics to. Actually, I think we both wrote the lyrics to one of the songs with Gadfly called "Quarter Life Crisis," and we were, basically, the song was about having a total identity crisis, nervous breakdown, because what happened at the end of my college, or toward the end of my college time in college, was all my fantasies about revolution and change and that we're going to make the world right had just come crashing down because I had to become immersed in the realities of the world and became aware that this was a giant big mess and it wasn't just going to get fixed quickly. And so that's hard to process as a younger person. And so I went through what you call a quarter life crisis, probably around age 20, 21. And it was a severe crisis. I had a panic attack that lasted about 3 months. And eventually got over it over the course of months after that. And then I kind of came to a breakthrough where I had a realization it was okay that everything was fucked up. And that, that I can't control I can't control things and can't control the world.
Surrender.
I can hardly control my fucking self. I got to start working on that and start at square one, and then not freak out about the entire picture of the world that I had coming apart. And after being depressed about that for a while, I had a breakthrough and got over it, and that's when I was ready to have fun, and I did have fun, and I was able to have fun at a much deeper level. And also, what it did for me was be able to appreciate so much more. Going back to my what I said before about having such an
Did you
immature,
figure this all out at
purist
21?
attitude. Well, I haven't figured everything out, but I had a breakthrough that I got past a terrible point in my emotional existence that
And you went forward.
that I had to. It was like advance or perish. I had to do something. I'm cursed with a philosophical mindset. I can't just. I could watch as much TV as there ever was dished out. It would never take me away from sort of an existential, mindset that can't escape from, the brutal facts of reality.
Or only you knew what was coming, the 24 hours a day that was coming on the internet to bum yourself out,
Oh my God!
Hey, so just
I'm acting like I'm way behind the times. No
just
shit,
for the time.
the internet.
No, I'm saying, but just for the timeline, though. Okay, so you
Sure.
skateboarding, punk rock, and then when did you saw Civil? So the next band, say in the timeline of our town that I know of, was the Civil D.
I'd say 1983. I saw them.
And then
1983.
after them, the next band in the town was were there any current bands around at that time, or was Gadfly the next band?
That was the next band that Fergus and I were involved with. We met in high school, and toward the end of high school, like I said, I didn't even play any music, so I got all excited about it and decided I wanted to learn how to play guitar. And I spent the summer, because I wanted to be in a band too, because that's that masculine, and play guitar, just like Johnny Cougar says, play guitar. Anyway. But I wanted to do that, and I was able to learn enough to just, basically play along and make some noise. And the beauty of punk, that's all you need.
But that was your first band then, Gadfly, or were you in?
It was, yep,
yeah.
yep.
And what was the Civil Disobedience? Obviously, was a politically themed. Gadfly also was themed politically from literature, and it seemed to me when I came back home one time, all of a sudden Gadfly, you guys had just spawned tons of bands all of a sudden, and there was places like that Place to Play at 5 Points, and I was really surprised.
Yeah.
I've been in California for a number of years, and I kind of had this idea of the town as dead, and I came back and I'm like, no, these fucking kids are doing something.
I know, and basically what happens, you miss like this beautiful fruition of punk, of hardcore punk that happened. And I have to give give credit to Mass Giorgini, who was the one who opened Spud Zero. And it was, I don't know, a couple of years only, seemed like longer. But he's just this really industrious, charismatic guy who, as a young man, was able to finagle credit and just buy a rented building and put this club together. And,
but he had a band,
Rat Tail Grenadier.
Rat Tail Grenadier. So they were.
And those guys were the same time frame as us. I think they're pretty much our same age. They were from like Lafayette, Jeff High School, I think.
They went to Jeff. Wow. Okay. Cool.
Yep. They were from exactly the same time frame as us. So. And
they were hardcore too.
They were totally hardcore. Yep. Metalish, hardcore, becoming metalish,
right
toward the end. But,
that's when metal was coming in.
Yeah,
soon it was going to be thrash and thrash metal.
Absolutely, and then 40,000 new kinds of metal since then.
Were there any other bands from Lafayette or West Lafayette around that time besides Gadfly and Rat Tail?
Well, I'll tell you something. The thing, the robust scene that I was referring to before is. Yes, there were a bunch of punky bands and punk rocky bands. And the funny thing about a scene like a smaller town like us is, everybody, even punks were mingling with everyone else, and it was all just indie bands. It was all just kids. But a lot of them weren't punk bands, so we would overlap. But some of them were. There were a bunch of bands. See, and again, it's regional, too, because we had a lot of bands that would come up, especially when Spud Zero opened. Bands would come up from Bloomington, Muncie, around, but there were bands from around here, Strontium 90, TFH is one, Paul Baldwin's band, and Dave Mason, and some other dudes. just a bunch of actually a really burgeoning, a sudden flowering of bands and scenes and like also parties. Like there was always bands playing at parties, and there was this place called the Freak Show Bungalow, and I have no idea who rented it, but it was a garage on campus.
I built
for
it
a year or two. Are you serious?
Yeah, because the last year of college, I had me and a bunch of people that had kind of been into punk had gone and seen the Dead, and were doing a lot of acid, and I had this band, the Freak Show, and it was like kind of a punk rock, really lame attempt at playing Dead kind of stuff. And we took this behind this house. It was this little garage, and we fucking covered the floor with milk crates. And
it was awesome.
Yeah, but then we left, and that's when Braden and those guys lived in the front house there, and they had a lot of shows there, I think. So
that's what I mean.
I moved away.
Yeah, you just missed, sort of, I guess, what it seems. It seems that you just missed sort of what seems, and it was a narrow window. It just seemed so big because it was so seriously, like, pretty amazing. There were, so in
the Bored
addition
Cops.
to, like, punky bands, there were Bored Cops, there was poppy bands, East of Eden, we didn't really hang out. They were for more mainstream aspirations to be, mainstream pop. Nothing punky about them. But there were a bunch of
that went to my high school.
Yeah. Anyway, but the scene was really awesome, and there were lots of shows. And one thing that also made it great too, like I said before, was we played in Bloomington whenever we get a chance, or Indy, or wherever, Kokomo, Delphi, wherever, places, whoever, whenever, wherever you get to, some kind of.
Did you feel like it was like everyone in the band felt it was us against the world?
No, we really were having fun. We had a great time. We had fun performing. I was ecstatic performing. I'm actually, every time I do, I still sort of become like outside my body. It's just we were having fun mostly. I was being very political and strident sometimes, but
you think you were the most strident one of the bunch?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I was the one with the biggest corn cob up my ass, which is completely removed now, thank God. But yes.
Was it because you're the most educated on the subjects, or you just felt outrage naturally?
Well, I guess both. Well, what happened was it started in high school, and it started with punk rock. There's tons of, especially hardcore variants of punk that's just very revolutionary and political, and not just politically revolutionary, but countercultural. I would have to say the dominant thing, because it's a blatant and violent rejection of Reaganomics and middle class, the sort of fruition of like the post-war consumerism into this devolving into this shitty, consumerism world where, anyway. So it's not just, it wasn't
not
just
bitter anymore, though.
No, it wasn't just the politics, but, the culture of kind of just
when we started
the fat-bellied American. What's that now?
It's when we started down the road to where we are now, just the rampant consumerism and capitalism. And there are, there's no dictators anymore. There's just cash is the dictator,
Yeah. And that Reaganomics was really was the start of the devastation of middle class and working class and the destruction of the unions and all that shit that's just fucked everything up and contributed in many ways.
But you were just having fun at the time, though, too. You still were just having fun.
Absolutely.
And then so what I meant by the us against the world is not against, like, you weren't us against the world. It was us together against the world. Like we were united and we were trying to do this thing and through the world, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And I'll tell you, that's what it was. It did feel universal, too. The punk tribe was powerful, I mean, seriously, it was exhilarating to, like I said, share fanzines and get a fanzine in the mail. And just
did you go play on the East Coast?
We never ranged very far. Indianapolis, Bloomington, that was about the farthest we ever went as Gadfly. We were only a band for a couple of years.
What about Kentucky, Lexington Club down in in the very edge of Kentucky by Cincinnati?
We never did play there. Now I never played there. We never played there. We were just, I guess it was like probably 2.5 years maybe that we existed as a band.
Did you guys move to Chicago at some point?
No, I mean, we broke up as a band basically 1991, 92 because, everyone was graduating from college and our drummer graduated and moved and I guess it just was kind of time. And another thing too, very in the same time frame, like Last couldn't keep open Spud Zero because, it's not exactly a for-profit or profitable business.
Yeah.
And so, so the scene kind of, it was this effulgence of punk rock and general music that was very robust that kind of disappeared or became much less robust and much less shit going on. And, so that coincided with that. And then everyone just kind of went on their separate ways, and I went traveling in Mexico and things like that.
You never had really like a calamitous breakup, finger pointing?
Oh no, not at all. No,
I saw one of your reunions where you guys had 4 guitar players playing all at the same time. I was like,
absolutely hilarious. Yeah.
Well, pretty cool.
There were some iterations of the band, and the first was Civil Disobedience with Greg and Fergus and Mike Paschke, and Todd Ronk was their drummer, and then when we became Gadfly, and we met Mike Fleming, who was a Purdue student, so it was like our freshman year at Purdue, or the summer before that we became Gadfly, and became the drummer. And then a few years later, Chris Kenser joined our band, and Greg, I believe what happened with Greg is he went to the Art Institute, went off to become an artist, and so Chris became our guitarist. And when we had a reunion, we had Fergus and me both play guitar. But then so if you get Greg, Chris, and me and Fergus, you're right. So 5 guitarists, including the bassist.
No, but I just thought it was cool because it's like, it just felt like so much love in the room. Like everyone there was like, there wasn't a lot of ego, where like I gotta be the guy in front of this guy or whatever,
Yeah, it was a beautiful, wonderful, and actually we've done 4 of them, and it's just been wonderful every time. And
I missed the last one.
I enjoyed them more than anything. I didn't really keep doing music, performing. I play myself a little bit, but it was just so nice to come back and after we did 1 or 2 of our reunions, I felt that we needed to either write some more songs or stop. You can't just do a band frozen in time, although actually it happens all the time. The Stones are still playing. Anyway.
If any of our bands had been like frozen in time like that, that also would mean that we could pay our mortgages because people would be coming to see that frozen in time band,
No shit. No kidding. It makes it a lot easier. Absolutely, hilariously. Anyway, but these reunion shows have been really great, and all our friends, like we just had friends, it was a reunion of friends, more than, as much as anything else, because, our dear friends came, and they've been, since we've done it 4 times, there have been opportunities for some who couldn't make it one year to come the next, and so it's been a nice. This
is what you know thing. About how old we are. I couldn't come last year because of sciatica.
Shit, I know. God,
you know
right.
What I'm saying? Well, so
I do.
Do you still live in West Lafayette, or where do you live now?
I do live in West Lafayette. Yep. I moved back here from Lafayette.
From where?
I basically lived in West Lafayette or Lafayette most of my life. I cruised around, lived in Oregon for like a year or half a year. Off and on for a year or so, doing some traveling.
After the band broke up, and you came back. Did you have another band in Lafayette or West Lafayette?
I never did. I never did. I never did pursue it. I don't know why. I just because like I said, it's been so enjoyable to redo it. I just never did do it. But
it's like was that you did it first time perfectly. Why try to chase that?
Well, no, but
no. I mean, it is because I've tried to have I've had a million bands. I don't have one now, but I was always trying to get that's my question about the Us Against the World. I was always trying to find that one unit where we're all on the same page and try to Us Against the World. And
sure.
For me, it's mostly because I was trying to force it to be like that it wasn't like that. So,
of course, that's what it's a normal human thing. Of course, yeah.
Yeah. But
yeah.
Did you keep a guitar the whole time?
I play guitar, and I've written all kinds of songs and all kinds of semi-songs over the years. And actually, I was able to piece together a couple of songs I thought were pretty, reasonably decent to add to us playing at Gadfly reunion. And last year, Fergus had added one too. So we do have a few new ones.
Well, that's cool. Maybe you guys could make a record at some point.
We keep planning on it, yeah, but that was the idea. So one of these years, maybe this year, we're going to record some of our old stuff and also maybe do some new stuff. It's a little different.
Everybody has kids.
Yeah, I know. It's yep, and everybody does. Fleming doesn't, but that's convenient because he lives in Rhode Island and. So he's able to kind of fly in and out. He's got a good job. He didn't get a liberal arts degree like I did, so he has a good job.
Are you at Purdue? Is that what you do?
No, I actually I've been working as basically like remodeling and painting contractor for most of my adult life. I went to grad school. I was going to try to see if I could become a university professor, but my plans changed. Toward the end of my grad school, I fell in love and got married, and with a woman with some kids that I also fell in love with. And if you pursue a career in academia, first of all, you should go to Harvard or Oxford if you want to improve your chances of becoming hired. But you also need to be prepared to go wherever there's a job. That's just sort of how it works. And I said, you know what? I started resuming my painting and other work that was making $40,000 immediately after grad school. I said, well, I'll keep applying for jobs regionally, but
I'll keep doing this in the meantime.
And so I did that, and so I just ended up doing that. But one thing that's been very nice is in the last 6 or 7 years, I have had the opportunity to teach at Ivy Tech.
Oh, cool.
I do get to teach, and I really love it, and I enjoy it. It's exhilarating. I just love it. I teach philosophy, ethics, and creative philosophy. And I tell you, I'm really excited about the Gen Z kids. They're kind of like a reflection of the Gen X punk rock generation as their parents, in a way that the millennials were a shitty reflection of the boomer generation.
I see kids today, and I think they're all like the kind of us punk weirdo kids were back then. Like all the kids are like that now. Everyone's emo, everyone's somewhat bipolar or ADD and all this stuff. But they also have this wellspring of creativity and fucking,
they do.
They're alive, man.
They are, and I'll tell you, it's different than millennials. And I hate to beat up on millennials, and it's not their fault.
You do beat up on millennials on Facebook sometimes.
The boomers, it's the boomers' fault that boomers raised them. Anyway, they did them a disservice, and they did our society a disservice. It was all part of this, when America won the Cold War, we thought we were going to just ride on top of the world and not have to worry about anything, so they spoiled their kids. And I'll tell you, I've spoiled my kids. I mainly just because it's so fucking hard to be a parent, you know.
That's why everyone spoils. Dude, my dad
Yeah.
totally spoiled me. You know why? Because he couldn't handle it emotionally when I was fucking up or like sad or whatever. And it's like, you know, how do you tell someone like, no, I'm always going to be like this some of the time. You can't fix it. But but you know, my dad was a Purdue professor. I don't so.
Yeah,
I always had that thing of like, you know, like I could do that, and I know he would like that, you know, that kind of thing, and that made it therefore the last thing in the world I was ever going to do, you know.
Right, of course, yeah.
But I was adopted,
I mean,
so I just didn't feel any connection to anyone really.
Yeah, that's a unique consideration. It makes a difference for sure.
When you get adopted, come from like what would have been a really shitty situation into like you basically win the lottery, like I did. Like I never knew how.
Right.
To, still don't know how to fucking handle that. You know, there's still like guilt and weirdness about it.
Well, in a way, see, it's more complicated than winning the lottery because there's more to life than material security. Although it's very good.
It's nice to have.
But like I said, I think our parents' generations were very inept, and I love them, and I hope they forgive me for speaking critically of them. But I felt most of the parents of my friends and my parents were, they just kind of had kids, and they didn't seem to put a whole lot of thought into it, even after years of being a parent. Like, haven't you learned how to figure this out? No, I guess you haven't. But anyway, so so there is value, I think, in taking an approach that isn't so like emotionally distant and more strict and old-fashioned, the way my parents did. So there is some value in having a more unconditional love kind of foundation for parenting, which is what I have done. But it also strays into that realm, like we said, because it's so hard. I mean, my personality, last thing I ever want to do is make somebody do something they don't want to do.
It's difficult.
It sucks. I hate it. And I was never going to have kids myself. I haven't actually. I've only got stepkids, which was more than enough for me. And I think I fucking still fucked them up anyway.
Of course you did.
They were 4 years and 8 years old when
what was your dad a professor of?
He was a professor of English.
An English professor. What about your mom? What'd she do?
She did lots of different things. She basically was like she had jobs at Purdue, basically being a secretary and
administrative assistant. Yeah.
And she also got a master's degree too in Spanish for a while. But yeah, nice. She just kind of, my dad, English professor, they pay very poorly. After 40 years of working there at Purdue, he was making $56,000. It's like at that time, it's like I was getting ready to. I was already on the job market. People were starting at $50,000 at the first year of their, job. Right. So anyway, so we didn't have a wealthy family, but we have the security of the academic world and the West Lafayette, safety and whiteness and all that shit.
Right. Well, that amount of money plus any amount of money that your mom would have brought in back then would have been really comfortable in West Lafayette, I would think.
Yeah, it was good. It was fine. Yeah, and it was good. It was good, definitely.
We lived outside of town. Did you know that I grew up on the same little lane that Paskey did initially?
I did, and by the way, I live about probably less than a half a mile from where you grew up.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm using the band name now, Shagbark Lane, but that's my new band name.
That's sweet.
Where do you live now?
I live just off State Road 26, west of town, just past Sharon Chapel Road. So just on the other side of that Purdue farm from the
that's like
Shagbark Lane.
By Drury Lane there?
Yep, it is. It's right. Yep, right by Drury. Yep.
Good old dude. That's my turf.
Yeah.
It's in me. Like you fucking believe. I can't believe. Like I still, lived there for 18 years. It's just like I feel like I should just go back there and absorb into the earth at some point.
I know. I hear you. I know the feeling. Definitely.
Okay, so let's see. We finished this. No, you stopped, and then how old were the kids? 4 and 8 when you met her?
Yes, they were. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So you just kind of had to slide right in and be dad.
Yeah. Well, stepdad, because they still had their dad, but
he was still in the picture.
He's in the picture, but they live with me and my wife and visited their dad on weekends. It's just it's quite a little adventure, and it's still going on because my daughter has some serious mental health challenges, and it's a challenge to.
She was the 4-year-old when you moved in.
She was. Yep.
And so how old is she now?
She's 22 now.
Yeah, 20s are fucking hard when you're like. I can say as a bipolar American, the 20s were fucking a wild ride. So. Yeah,
it's been a wild ride. Yeah, but it's just you just gotta roll with it.
All you have to do is keep going.
Yep. And me and my wife are both. We love, even though we get irritated and frustrated and hateful about it sometimes, we love to be caring people and caregivers. Basically, I actually fucking sick of it, but I'm kind of joking, but
I'm sick of it, but I can't help but do it because I love it.
We still feel fulfilled by it, even though it's very challenging.
Does she live with you?
She does not. No, she doesn't. She moved out when she was like 17, and she was kind of going through a lot of things. To quote Donald Trump about Yovanovitch, but she's doing better. But it's I'm sure you know how it is. It's up and down sometimes, and it's just life. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know anyone who's not got some sort of issue, and staying on top of it is simply a matter of staying on top of it. How's that for a fucking aphorism?
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely.
But I think for me that when I stepped into the character and I was punk rock. And I expanded my mind, and I felt the powerful unity of, being part of something. Mm-hmm. I think I still carry that with me, and I think you do too. And
oh my God! Everything, all my writing, all my dissertation was totally punk rock. I wrote a book with a colleague of mine, my mentor, my thesis advisor for my PhD. We wrote a book a few years ago before he died, and it was totally the fun-filled version of punk rock. But we call one of the themes in the book that kind of guides the whole, it's an interpretation of basically of what it means to be human, what human consciousness is and how it's very difficult to understand human consciousness and where it came from and why the fuck it happened. And also looks at the world we've created with our crazy minds that we collectively put together and created this insane, fucked up world with technology and all this. But it's the punk rock spirit guiding that book. So everything I do is still that way.
Where can I read this book or get this book?
It's available online at Amazon. It's called Mind Unmasked.
Will you send me a link?
Yeah, I will send you a link. Absolutely. It's not. I did my best to keep it kind of accessible to a popular audience, and I do believe that most of it really is. But if I write another book, which I am writing another book. I don't know if it'll ever get published, but everything I write now has no jargon whatsoever, no fancy concepts. I mean, I try to keep them to a minimum, but it is a philosophical book, so we were, you know, it is an academic book, so we're
You
talking
should
about.
start doing YouTube videos.
Yeah,
The philosopher contractor. It could be like the next big thing.
Sure, I should. I know. I've thought about it. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
if I only had some ambition. I got a lot of ideas. I'm trying to get other people to do them.
Well, right. No, but that's good. It's good to spread good ideas. Yeah.
Well, cool, man. I feel like we had a good talk.
Yeah, no, thank you for calling. I appreciate it. I'm honored to be considered worthy of
You're worthy, buddy. You're
any kind of
guest number
interest.
one.
Excellent.
You guess that we could be on both of my podcasts. One, the Indiana Punk one, and the I Could Have Been Somebody and I Am. It's like the same thing.
That's great. That's a great title.
I'll put it up on both. I'm going to put it up on both. So you'll be the first guest ever on Indiana Punk, and the first dual guest. So there you go.
Thank you. Sounds great. Thank you again for calling, Dana.
All right,
Appreciate it,
buddy. I'll see you on the Facebooks.
All right. Take it easy.
All right, take it easy. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Well, there you go. The first episode. Tim Yetman. This whole thing started because I'd be telling my wife stories all the time about various eras, just rambling on like I do. And she'd always say, you should do like an oral history of Indiana punk, because I read a lot of oral histories. But I've written a few books, and they suck, or whatever, That's not the point. The point is, I had to sit there and write them, and I can't do that anymore. I can't sit for very long. My back hurts, and I just have other shit to do. Maybe someday I'll reel off some books when I can't play guitar at all, or who knows, fucking knock on wood, all those other superstitions. But anyway, I'm fucking having a great time interviewing people with this podcast, and my other one Could Have Been Somebody, and I am, because we are all somebody. And before I drift off into the self-help lane, I'm going to sign off. See you next time on Indiana Punk Forever.